What I'm going to do for you today is just basically, we have a little bit of time, just talk to you about what I talk to intended parents about when they come in to see me. So I offer a free consultation to any intended parents who are thinking of going through a surrogacy journey. And even after today, you're welcome to come visit me in Connecticut. I often come into the city and meet people here, so we can arrange a consultation. I can answer your questions and talk to you about our program. I figure it's an opportunity for me to talk to you about me, and it's an opportunity for me to get to know you and what your desires and your wish list is in terms of the surrogacy process. So when we get together, what I do is I show this folder to people, and I'll tell you what's in it. I also can email these documents to people, so a lot of times you will have had these documents even before you come in to see me. So that's always a good thing. You can look at the anticipated expenses and things like that and ask me questions about it. Communication is key. The more questions you ask, the better off I'm going to be in terms of knowing what you need to know and the more information you're going to have. And even in terms of the journey itself, communication is key. You have to always ask your people questions. If you have questions about fees, if you have questions about checks, if you have questions about expenses, if you have questions about procedures or travel or legal issues, never hesitate to ask your questions. Some people are really good at asking questions, and some people are more shy and think that there are things they should know, and maybe they don't ask the questions. So, door is open, always ask questions. So, I have Worldwide Surrogacy Specialists, LLC, and the law firm of Victoria Ferrara. Those are two entities. I own and operate both. So you're working with me. I don't outsource you other than for your medical treatment, or if you're using an egg donor, you'll be working with different entities for that. But basically the buck stops here. And like I pride myself on that. I'm not going to give you to somebody else to work with. You are going to work with my team at times, but I am the one that you're going to be communicating with probably on a regular basis. And in the folder then, our main team, we have other support people from time to time, but our main team is Serena Lugo, and she is the Director of Surrogate Services, and she was a gestational carrier 2 different times for families, and she has her own children, but she knows the gestational carrier route. She knows the medical protocol. She knows what it means to be a carrier. She knows how to talk to carriers. She basically recruits carriers for us, and she's really good at it because she knows what's going on. Okay, so she knows she can answer any questions that a potential gestational carrier would have. So she's one of the first people that you get to know, because she's going to get to know you, and she's going to get to know carriers at the same time, and she's going to help to make the match. So with my assistance and my supervision, Serena is basically instrumental in making the match. As I said before on the expert panel, it's a tailor-made match. You're not going to pick from a list. It's a tailor-made match. You will approve the surrogate that I would present to you. And if you don't want the one that I present to you, that's perfectly fine. You come back to me and say, well, we'd rather have somebody from this locality, or we'd rather have somebody who is going to live this type of a lifestyle, or whose husband doesn't smoke, maybe. I mean, there are all different nuances. The husband smokes, but he always smokes outside. Well, that may not work for you. So that's totally fine with me. Okay, I don't pass any judgment on what you need or want in the surrogate. I want to make you happy. I want to make the right match, because the right match is key to the successful journey. Okay, so Serena, then we have Jen, who is a social worker. So she basically gets involved in the beginning, but more so after there's a pregnancy. She's like she's a case manager. So you would meet her early on, but then you would have more to do with her after there's a pregnancy and there's coordination regarding the pregnancy issues and support and social work type support, case management support. Then we have 2 lawyers, myself and attorney Ronnie Clarkin. Ronnie does a lot of contract work. She'll help with drafting of the gestational carrier contract. She would help with coordinating with the lawyer to do the pre-birth work. If it's in another state, I actually do the pre-birth order work in Connecticut, so if there's a Connecticut birth, we're instrumental in doing that. And then Erin, of course, just joined our team, so soon we'll have your card stapled
Just
here.
remember my face for now.
One of my proudest moments in my career is this case called the Raftable versus Ramey case. And this is a Connecticut case. It was a Supreme Court decision, and it was my case, and I argued it before the Connecticut Supreme Court. And what this case did was actually change surrogacy law, and it created a new way of establishing legal parentage. So the usual ways are to have your own baby or to adopt a baby. This creates a new way, and that is by being a party to a valid gestational carrier agreement and signing the agreement and having the birth through surrogacy. So what this did was it made it possible, it's a Connecticut case, it made it possible in Connecticut for a non-genetic parent to become a legal parent prior to the birth of your baby. So obviously with gay couples, there's going to be one genetic dad and one non-genetic dad. So that non-genetic dad now can establish his legal rights before the birth. And in Connecticut and in other states too, before this case, that non-genetic dad would have to adopt the baby. So it's looked at as a gay rights case. It's more than that because it applies to all people using surrogacy who are using donor gametes. So a straight couple who's using an egg donor would have the same issue that you guys would have. So it's for straight couples and gay couples, but it came out in 2010, and it really is the pinnacle of my career here. So I'm very proud to be able to present that to you. Then two things you need to look at when you're thinking of surrogacy and thinking of using an agency. One is the retainer agreement with the agency. So this kind of outlines my obligations toward you and my expectations of you, and it also outlines what you need to expect from me and what you want me to do for you. So it's our agreement, and it's pretty straightforward. Every once in a while somebody says to me, should I have it looked at by a lawyer? And I'm perfectly happy with that. It's never generally changed. Again, it's pretty straightforward. Every once in a while someone questions me on a fee or the timing of a fee or whatever, and I'm always able to smooth out those wrinkles or answer those questions. So I encourage, again, questions or concerns about the retainer. And the second important document when you're starting out is the questionnaire, the intended parent questionnaire. And it's a lengthy document so that we can really get to know you and what you want out of the journey. The surrogates complete a similar lengthy questionnaire so we can get to know them too. And some of the things that we need to know about are like how much communication you would want to have with your surrogate, and that really varies from case to case. Some people don't want much contact, and I had one European couple, actually a straight couple, that wanted to remain anonymous, completely anonymous from the surrogate, which is possible, but it's somewhat more problematic because the carrier usually wants to have some kind of relationship with the intended parents. Usually, people do have a relationship with the carriers, and it ranges from becoming very friendly to just having more of a cordial relationship and making sure that everybody's healthy and doing what they're supposed to be doing during the journey. So that's a personal preference, and you need to make that preference known. Other things, really important concerns in the matchmaking process are if there's a severe birth defect, do the intended parents wish to have the pregnancy terminated? And if so, then we need to have a surrogate who's willing to abide by the wishes of the intended parents. The other important consideration is selective reduction. You heard people downstairs talk about that. I had one case where they transferred 2 embryos into the surrogate. The doctor transferred 2 embryos. And one of those embryos naturally split, which is something that can happen in nature. So 2 embryos became triplets. So there's one on its own, 1 embryo, and then two babies that were part of the same embryo. And that can be a very high-risk pregnancy. So first of all, we need to know ahead of time, if there are triplets, do the intended parents want to do everything they can to keep the triplets, Or do they not want to do everything they can to keep the triplets? Is that not in the plan, and do we have to think about if that happens, should there be a selective reduction? So let's say the parents would like a selective reduction, then we need to make sure we have a surrogate that has no philosophical issues or moral issues or medical or personal reasons why they wouldn't want a selective reduction. So that's part of the matchmaking process. So in my story, we did have parents who wanted the selective reduction ahead of time if they were triplets, and then we had a carrier who agreed that she would undergo the selective reduction ahead of time, so we correctly made the match. But then when the triplets were conceived, the carrier had second thoughts, and she thought, well, I don't know if I can go through this selective reduction. So our job as the agency was really to hear everybody. We couldn't make this decision for them, but listen, support. And what I basically did is I said, well, go to the high-risk OB/GYN doctor and follow the instructions of the doctor. Follow the recommendations of the doctor. And basically what it turned out to be was, again, in this situation where one embryo splits, it's a high-risk pregnancy. So it's high risk to the carrier, it's high risk to the fetuses, and they ended up doing the selective reduction. And there was a little bit of tension in the relationship between the carrier and the intended parents for a short period of time, but they were able to come back together. They ended up having one baby because it was, I guess, better. The high-risk OB/GYN said if you're going to reduce, you have to take out the one that split. And so they ended up having one healthy baby, and it's done and over with, and the parents are home with their baby. So that's one example of an issue that can come up during the surrogacy journey. People ask me, have you ever had a carrier who wants to keep the baby? No, I haven't. And I think those types of cases are extremely rare, and really only happen in situations where you don't have the right protections in place from the get-go. Are there risks inherent to surrogacy? Yes. I would be remiss in telling you that there are no risks. There's risks inherent in getting pregnant naturally. There's risks inherent in walking across the street, right? So you can do it. It's totally possible. You have to pay attention to the details. You have to have professionals in place to pay attention to the legal details for you. And the more that you do that and gather information and have a plan in place that will work for you, the better off you'll be. So the other, obviously really important concern in our folder is the anticipated expenses. So we have this sheet we give out to everyone, and this is something that you should go over with a fine-tooth comb. So I'm not going to go over every detail of it right now. It's broken down into the agency cost, some background screening costs, what to expect in a contract, what to expect in terms of compensation in a contract, issues on insurance, medical insurance, legal fees, possible legal fees, and escrow management matters as well. So this is something that you should ask questions on. What is that fee? Will I have to incur this fee? How much do you think it will cost altogether? And we can only give you a large range of costs in the beginning, but when we start to tailor your plan and your journey, we can really boil it down and say this is what we think you're going to have to expect. So the other thing is, I did write a little book. I don't know if you guys were able to get a copy of it downstairs, but it's called Gestational Surrogacy, a primer, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's just an overview of what to think about, what to consider in terms of going into a surrogacy journey. So the first, the chapters are, who will be your gestational carrier? So, where are carriers found? How do you find them? What do you look for? How does the agency help? I have a section on questions to ask when interviewing a surrogacy agency. I tried to compile all the questions that people ask me when they come in for interviews and consultations, and I put a whole list down here so you can use this list when you interview agencies. I have definitions and terms. Now, because I realize that when, there are a lot of straight couples out there who have been through infertility treatments and IVF, and they know a lot about the medical protocol. But for gay couples, it's like you're coming to it not from the medical background. You haven't been trying to have children for years, and now you have to turn to surrogacy. You really don't have that kind of knowledge, I guess, yet. So I have a whole section on definitions and terms, kind of the lingo, you know, the lay of the land lingo. And then there's a whole bunch of information on contracts. If I'm going to enter into a contract